welcome to this week's PC Voyage. I'm Rainey Laviolette.
And I'm Diana McLean.
And tonight we're going to be doing a couple things. We're going to be introducing you to Windows, and we're going to be doing another exciting segment of This New PC with Glenn Trim and Ernie Savoy. That sounds exciting.
Oh, it's exciting.
Now, for those of you, or one of you, that don't know what Windows is, what's a good way to describe Windows?
A graphical user interface.
That's good. It sits on top of DOS, and it shields the user from the standard old-fashioned DOS commands.
And it's much easier to use, despite some people's opinions,
especially him over there,
than regular DOS.
And the other thing with Windows, too, is that because it's a graphical interface, it gives you continuity between applications, hopefully.
Yes.
If you're looking at one type of, like one word processor, for example, with the exception of the features and the way it operates, they all pretty much look the same.
Right, exactly.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get into the Program Manager part of Windows, and this is the screen you see when you initially start up Windows. So why don't you take it away?
Okay, this is Program Manager. In Program Manager, there are different groups. What comes with Windows is the main group, games, accessories, applications, and the startup group. The main group consists of things like File Manager, which is similar to DOS Shell. Helps manage files, of course. Control Panel, which sets the settings for the computer.
The system settings.
Right. And a host of other things. But first, let's see the games. The games.
Now, this is the important stuff.
That's the important stuff. They put the games in there for a reason. It's to get people used to working with Windows.
Yeah, Microsoft's quote is, games you can use to practice the basic skills to learn to operate Windows.
Exactly.
I think it's just a big thing for all of us to waste time on.
Oh, well, we all like it, right? Also, accessories is another group.
And you can see by how way she's doing this is she double clicks on
each
one of the icons.
Double click to get into the group to see the icons. Here they have things like a calendar, calculator to do some calculations, a clock, paintbrush if you feel like painting. Loads of fun. Another nice time.
It comes with a low-end word processor and a place that you can put your names and addresses.
And, of course, startup. If you don't want to have Program Manager as a startup when you start Windows.
Well, better way to describe it is if you have an application that you want to use, that you want to start when you start Windows automatically. Like say if you have a calendar and you always want to see the calendar whenever you start Windows, you can load it into the startup group.
Exactly.
Why don't you show us how to load something into the startup group?
Okay, I will. Let's see, how about going into accessories, and we'll move that over by pressing the title bar. We'll move it down there, and opening startup. And we'll move startup by pressing the title bar, holding down on the mouse, and moving up here. What we want to do is take this clock and, and copy it. Thank you, Rainey. Copy it into the startup group.
Right.
Now
every time you start up Windows, the clock will automatically start.
Exactly. So do you want to do that?
Why don't you take us out of Windows? Why don't we do a quick exit from Windows?
Okay. I will.
And you get a little confirmation that says you're going to end it.
End Windows, okay. And let's see what happens this time.
Just type Win to get back in.
The first time we went into Windows, it just had the Program Manager with the groups represented by icons. This time it's going to be a bit different. It's going to have the clock.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If we don't fall asleep waiting for Windows to start. Here we go. Standard hourglass. You see the hourglass whenever it's waiting.
Yeah.
Windows can essentially, it's somewhat multitasking, but it can really only do one thing at a time. So whenever it's starting up, you still can't do anything else. We've got our standard Program Manager, but you see now the clock is running over here in the bottom right-hand side of the screen.
And that's what we just did.
And that's exactly what we just did. We haven't clicked on anything. Now, like I said, you could load the calendar in there, a card file in there, anything you wanted to start. If you had a company that had
say you didn't want the startup to come up looking like that, because that's the way it did. We had it because of the option, save settings on exit. Well, this is what it looked like when we finished our Windows session. So that's the way it was booted up again. Well, say we wanted, since we just have the clock in there, we don't need that big window. So we move very slowly along the corner edge, the bottom edge, or around the corner, excuse me. Very slowly.
We enlarge the mouse pointer for the
Yes.
demonstration, and sometimes it makes it a little hard. Down a little further.
Yeah,
There you go.
there. And we can move it up here so that it's in a smaller box. Also, we can do it horizontally. Generally, you can get the corner here, but
Down a little
I'm
bit
having
further.
a little
There
trouble
you
with
go.
the sensitivity because it wasn't set properly.
Oh, she'll blame me for everything.
So here we go. Now we have it much smaller, so then we don't have to look at such a big screen.
Right. You don't want to waste a lot of your screen space because it's such a
Right.
premium.
Now, however, one good thing to have as a setup tool is to have the main menu open like that, because you're going to generally go into the file manager. And a lot of people have automatically want to have file manager be coming up on the screen when they start Windows, so they can go right into the file they want to work in that particular application.
Right. So when you go into the options and you see these save settings on exit, you'll automatically, like she
It'll
said,
automatically
save the
leave it like
desktops.
that. Yes.
Right. What we're going to do here is let's blow away some of these. Let's close this down. Let's close the clock out. And you can see by looking at some of the pieces of the window, this is a system menu. And you can see one of the options on here is to close. But we can also do, with these two buttons over here, we can minimize the application. So now you see it in the lower left. We can also maximize the application. So now it takes up the full screen.
And now they know what time it is.
What time it is, and the date and everything else, providing it's right. With some windows, as she said, you can drag them out, close them up. You have the title bar, tells you what it is, and then the settings that give you different options about the program. And all programs have these basic as standard basic commands. With any group, you can take a group and drag it around the window. You can rearrange them if you want. What we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to add an icon to the main group. And what we're going to do is Microsoft has this thing called System Edit that they hide. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into New. We're going to say we have New Program Item. We're going to go in and say let's browse for it.
And you can choose your own icons.
Yep, we can
For
go ahead
the
and we can
window.
change the icon. You can see this thing here called SysEdit. That's a neat little utility that this is the only way to get access to it. And you see we have no description or no working directory. Because it's a Windows program, it knows already what the description is, and it already knows what the icon's going to be. So when we click OK, you'll see that it loaded in its own icon and its own title. Now let's do like what Diana said, and let's decide we want to change the icon. Oops, did not want to do that. What I did was I started the System Configuration Editor, which, like I said, is a neat program. It allows you to edit your AutoExec, your ConfigSys, your WinInny, and your SystemInny. Don't do any of these unless you have a
And
copy
those
of them.
files were cascaded.
Yes, they're cascaded. Ooh. Now what we can do is we can go into this option here called Properties, and we can see the description and the icon. There's an option over here called Change Icon. And you see that this document has two internal icons. You can change it to the page, or we can change it to the multiple page. If we go into Browse, there's two files within Windows that has a lot of extra icons. One is called moreicons.dll. Oh, but it's in this, I'm in the system, that's why I can't find it. There it is, moreicons.dll. If you double click on that, you will see a list of different icons for different kinds of
And you
programs.
just pick the arrow to keep going further to the right or to the left if you want.
And let's say we decide, and a lot of these, if you notice, they're name brand softwares. We're going to buy them here. But let's say for SysEdit we wanted to use the wrench and the pliers. We just click on it, say OK, and we click OK here. We have a new icon.
So there.
It-
See how easy it
It's
is.
that easy.
Yes.
Now, one of the other things that you can do is if you have two groups, well, we did the copying between the groups already, so you don't want to see that again. And if you decided afterwards you didn't want this group or this item, you can just hit the delete key or go down to the file delete and say, yes, we want to delete this item, and it's off the group. You
It's nice because Windows has a lot of confirmations to make sure what you're doing is what you really want to do. They'll ask you. So that's a great benefit. Where DOS, you can get into a bit of trouble.
Windows does a lot of guarding for you.
Yes.
To make sure you're doing all right. One of the in the options menu, there's auto arrange. Now, when you have a group open, and let's pick one that has a lot of icons in it. We'll maximize this. All right, you can see here that this has a lot of icons in it. Well, if you didn't have this option here set auto arrange, you would end up with some weird conglomeration of icons. But by having auto arrange, it automatically keeps the icons within a group in a nice, neat, orderly fashion. As far as these options here, these icons here, what you can do is you can go into Window, Arrange Icons, and it will automatically put them into a nice format on the screen. Okay. Let's see here. What else can we talk about?
Well, how about making the program manager larger?
We can do, well, we already showed that we can maximize it.
Okay.
And we can minimize it. You can also change, you can change the size of any of these groups.
Once you get your program manager customized to the way you want it, you can take that, save your settings off on it, save your settings on exit off, and it will be the same way that you started, the way you want it to be.
Yeah, so once
The
you get it
next
set
time
up,
you do it.
I never do. I always have it set up that way. So it
Well,
automatically
then it's
redoes
always
it
going to change. Well, it's nice to have a little variety.
you know, at least this way here it was the way it was when I left.
Right.
What we can also do is there's a couple of neat little tricks that I've learned.
Oh, no, not those.
My neat little tricks, undocumented little tricks.
Undocumented.
If you go into the Help menu and you go into the About Program Manager, this is something you can amaze your friends with. Of course, if they're not watching, it's easier. And if you hold down the right Control and Shift key and double click over here on this little Windows icon, first time it doesn't do anything. The second time you do that, it has a little thing here. It says dedicated to all the hardworking people at Microsoft.
Isn't that cute?
The third time you do it, you get a person with a little scrolling box of all the people that were involved in Microsoft Windows 3.1.
And where's Bill?
No, this one didn't come up with Bill. There's like 4 different people. Bill Gates. There's some bald guy. There's this guy here with the beard. And then there's a bear. And for some reason, I've not been able to get the bear lately.
Well, if anyone knows, they can always write in.
I don't know if there's a sequence to it, but there is a way to get the bear. And whenever you want to exit Windows, you can either come down here to the File and Exit, or you can just double-click on the...
And it's about time to exit.
Okay.
So
we'll confirm exit. We're going to exit Windows. And what's up next?
And that's it for Windows right now.
That's right.
Next, we're going to go on to Glenn and Ernie with this new PC.
Hello, I'm Glenn Trim,
And I'm Ernie Savoy.
and this is This New PC. Last time we finished up assembling our computer, put all the components together, and what we'd like to show you now is how to connect all of our peripheral devices, our input devices, our mouse and our keyboard, and our output device, which is going to be our monitor. So we're going to get started on the back with the monitor cable. You'll notice that the monitor cable has 2 different ends, one for the power outlets common in your homes, and one for the back of the device itself. Ernie, would you take care of that?
Sure.
We're going to use a power strip that's a surge arrest protector so that we get nice clean power coming in. We don't have any problems with surges, spikes, or brownouts. And everything's going to plug into here.
One of the things that Glenn is doing, these are grounded cables, and they're also set up so that polarity on the machine only gets to the power supply only goes one way. So when the PC does power up for the first time, it's converting the voltage internally from AC current to DC current, and having the polarity preset already with the type of cord you're using makes that a lot easier and a lot cheaper with the power supplies.
Our mouse is a serial type mouse, and that's going to connect only to our serial port plug. There's nothing else on the back of the machine that that'll plug in to. There are little screw downs to hold this in place so it doesn't fall out on us in the middle of our operations, and we're going to snug them down. Keyboard has only one place it's going to attach, and there is an alignment pin on the top of this that has to be toward the top side of the board. It goes in nice and snug.
Okay. So we're going to put in a DOS floppy disk. The format the first time. It's going to go on our A drive on that dual partition drive. Monitor is powered on. We'll power this up and hopefully everything's going to boot because we did it all right.
And the reason we power up with a floppy disk the first time instead of from the hard drive is because there's nothing on the hard drive. It's brand new. So we're going to start off with the floppy disk, the boot disk we've got, and then we're going to go to F disk and create the partitions on the hard drive and then format the hard drive so that we can put things onto it. And the formatting of a drive is very simply the creating of spaces that the disk will recognize so that we can put things onto the disk. Rather like putting lines on a piece of paper so that you can write in a straight line.
Okay, DOS is loading. Now this is an IDE drive in here too, and IDE drives come already low-level formatted, so that's some time that we don't have to consume here, and it's an option you really shouldn't do. If you have to go to the point of low-level formatting a drive, an IDE type drive, it really needs to go back to the shop for maintenance, and most manufacturers don't even produce utilities that allow you to do a low-level format on that type of drive. So DOS is loaded, and we're ready to go out and partition our hard drive for the very, very first time. So let me move the keyboard over here where I can see what's going on the monitor. Glenn, I'll walk around the front here. Okay, it's prompting us for date and time. We're not going to worry about that right now. At some point in time, we will have to go back into the machine setup and put the correct date and time in. So there's our A drive. It's working fine. Now, if our hard drive is installed correctly and the controller is installed correctly, what we will see here is I'm going to invoke a program called fdisk. It should recognize that there is a hard drive there. Fdisk is, if I spell it right, fdisk is the hard drive partitioning software that all versions of DOS use. And there we are. There is the menu for it. It gives you several options. The first one is the one we're going to use here. It's create a primary DOS partition. And since this is an over 300 megabyte hard drive, what we're going to do with this is we're going to make two even-sized partitions. And with DOS version 5 and up, it will automatically sense how many megabytes should be available on this drive. And if we tell it to split it logically down the middle, it should do it for us. So let's see if I remember all of that correctly. Okay, I've selected create a DOS partition. It's giving me a new menu. The first option is create a primary DOS partition, create an extended, or create logical drives. In this case, we're going to create the primary DOS partition where we'll store DOS, and that will become where we boot from on this machine from now on. So it's option 1. That's already there. It's the default. And now it's asking me a question. Do you wish to use the maximum available size for the primary DOS partition? I'm going to say no, and then it's going to go out there and look at that drive. Okay, it says that we have 329 megabytes total available on this drive. And it wants us to enter the partition size. So if we take half of 329, which is 164, and enter that, that will, 164, it will split our drive down the middle. And our partition is set for the first one. Now we'll hit escape and go back to the menu. We want to set the active partition, the partition in which we want to boot DOS off of, so I'll go back. That's option 2 on our main menu. Since we've only allocated one partition so far, that's the only one that's going to give us the option to do, and it gives us a partition number. If you can see it on your screens there, this is partition number 1, so we'll say our primary is number 1, and we should see that come active under status. There it is, there's an A. So we now have a bootable partition that we can copy DOS to. We still have 160 some odd megs available on this drive, so we'll make a secondary partition. Again, we'll go back to the main menu, and our go back to option 1, which is create a DOS partition again. And this time, we will take option 2, create an extended DOS partition. It says you have 165 megs left on it. Do you want to use it all? And we'll say yes, we do. And there we have a second partition on the drive. And it's extended DOS instead of primary DOS. Now, it's going to prompt me when I get out of here, it should, that we have to assign logical drive letters. And that's because the machine wants to keep track of what partitions are known to it as certain types of drives. So there it says, no logical drives are defined. Do you want us to do that? And we'll say yes, we do. And our second partition now has become known as drive D. The primary partition is always drive C on a hard drive, so it worked out fine. Hit escape. And we are pretty much done here with FDIS. We should be able to go out there now and do a DOS format. So we'll escape. It's going to want to reboot the system to now load that partition table. We'll hit enter, and DOS will reboot.
The next operation we're going to do is we're going to format the hard drives, and we're going to start off with drive C. And from the A prompt, we're going to type format C:, and then we're going to give a /S so that will be the system disk. That's the one with the DOS partition in it. This positions the two critical files, the hidden files, the system files, on the C drive partition.
It will also move the DOS command interpreter command.com, which is one of the only file that DOS actually displays as part of the operating system. And he does all the interpretation of any command that you enter into the keyboard.
Now at this point we get a warning message that comes up and says all the data on non-removable disk C will be lost. It asks us if we want to proceed. Obviously we do, so we're going to type yes. And then it begins to format. It gives you a percentage as it's going along and tells you how much space it's going to give us, 164.04 megabytes. And runs off the percentages. This is a fairly fast drive, so we're already up to 20% here. It might take just a minute or two to format this drive. A slower drive obviously will take a little more time to do.
What the format option is doing here is where the manufacturer with the low-level format has gone out there and laid out the track architecture on the drives and said this is where you're going to lay down a track. What we're doing with DOS is we're actually defining what that track is, and we're breaking it up into so many sectors per track and defining them the space, they're 512K sectors. And the end result of this will be that we'll be able to write files on this because we now have a structure on that drive that DOS understands, can write to, read, and keep track of. And if you remember back to when we did our FDIS command, since we specified that C was the primary partition for DOS, even if we were able to boot, again, if the C partition was some way corrupted, he would not recognize the DOS files on the D drive. He's not going to look there.
Now at this point it asks for a volume label, and we can call it anything we want, from drive C to DOS 6.2 or anything else we wanted to put on there. At this point I'm not going to put anything, we're just going to bypass that. And then it tells us how much space was allocated on the disk, and gives us how many sectors and how many bytes in each sector. The same procedure we'll finish up on drive D. Okay, so we're just about finished, and when we do finish up and we get to 100%, we're going to take the floppy disk out of the floppy drive and then reboot to make sure that it boots off our C drive. And then once we're sure that all the connections and everything are working and we've got no problems with the physical connections of our drive, we're going to put the case on and button it up tight. Keep it that way unless we have a physical problem. Again, we're going to bypass the volume label. Everything reads out okay. So here comes our floppy. And Control, Alt, and Delete to reboot the system. And go through all the diagnostic checks. A single beep to indicate that the post command, the power on self-test for the machine is successful.
One of the things you may be noticing on the screen while we are booting up, most of the newer BIOSes, the basic input operating sets or chips on the motherboard, come out and actually detail to you some very, very good information about the way your system is set up. The types of floppy drives that are installed, the hard drive type, what your addresses are for your COM ports and your parallel port. And that's information that you should probably write down when you have the opportunity, because as you begin to add things to your basic system, you want to try to avoid address conflicts. Which is one reason the manufacturers have put those prompts out there. It makes it very, very easy for you to open up a manual, see what addresses the new devices are going to use, and make sure that you don't have a conflict before you try to install them.
Okay, so we've gotten through our boot up on drive C, and we do have a C prompt, so everything looks like it's in good shape. And now we're going to take our case components and put them back on the machine so that we've got a computer that looks like a computer.
we have other options we're going to be adding on to this machine, so in an upcoming segment, you'll see us add a CD-ROM device and a sound card and stereo speakers, and later on a tape backup, because this is a larger system. When you're thinking about building your systems, those are some of the questions you should ask, as we said in earlier segments, and hopefully you won't have problems, and we hope that we helped you.
So until next time, I'm Glenn Trim,
And I'm Ernie Savoy.
and this is This New PC.
Welcome back. That was another great segment from Ernie and Glenn.
Oh, yes, and I just want to clarify one thing for
Okay.
the Windows segment. Once you customize your program manager, you want to save the settings on the exit, but the next time you're using Windows, remember to shut that part off, so you'll have what you saved the first time.
And if you don't do it that way, you won't save your settings at all.
You'll be changing over and over.
Okay. Now what we want to do is bring you the address. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions,
Yes, don't hesitate to
to send us a letter.
send us a letter.
I'll fill in the words as we go along here. We'll be right back after the address.
Hi, welcome back.
Well, hopefully there's no more corrections that we need to make here.
I hope not.
And on that note, we want to thank Glenn Trim and Ernie Savoy for doing This New PC.
A great job.
As always, we've got a lot more segments that they've been working on. So,
Wonderful.
and we'll see you next time on PC Voyage. I'm Rainey Laviolette.
And I'm Diana McLean. See you next time.
We did a good job. We did fine. The whole night's actually gone very well.